Well, it's actually warm. It's February and it's warm. It's 17 degrees. I feel like the weather, man. I always talk about the weather every time I'm on here. I don't know why. But anyway, it's warm enough for me to be sat outside here in February, mid-February at that, in a t-shirt. I've actually got a bit of a sweat on. I've got a sweat on because I've moved this bike outside. It's not actually that heavy, but I think I've dislocated my finger. Somehow it's come out of its socket and it's not quite lining up right. I'm trying to lift up this bike on the stand. So whilst I'm waiting for parts for the CB750, mostly the parts that we need to finish it, and we're not that far away from finishing it now either, I'm going to introduce you to the Maico 490. So for those of you not knowing much about Maico, Google it, YouTube it, check out all the old videos that you can on Maicos. 82 probably isn't as good a year as an 81. This isn't an 81, you can tell the difference by 81 being a twin shock. The 82 was the first year that they bought a monoshock out, and a lot of people said that that had an impairment on the way it handled. But nonetheless, it has the same engine as the 1981 490, and it is a beast. If you look up any information on Maico, this is the bike that would whole shot any other bike. It's an absolute beast for the time, that is. Of course, technology has come a long way along the years, but in the early 80s, this was a bike with you. There's a lot of people kind of saying, well, yeah, it's no CR500. Yeah, me, I'm a Maico man. So to bring you up to speed with where we are now with this bike, I restored this bike back in 2011, 2012, probably 2011. The bike had been sitting 15 years. What had happened was 15 years prior to that, I was riding on the beach and all of a sudden the engine just ground to a halt. Now what we found out then, looking inside it, was that gear pivot lever that's very close to the twin primary chain snapped. That then got wedged inside the crankshaft sprocket. The horrible mess, the primary chain, both primary chains smashed, everything went inside everywhere. So there wasn't too much damage, but it took us 15 years of just leaving the bike outside in all the elements. And then after putting it back together, it started on the like 12th kick or something. It's a testament to how strong this engine is. I mean, it's a two-stroke, so there's nothing really that can go wrong with it. So we restored the bike from then. Since then, sort of 6 years, 5-6 years passed, and the bike again was put into storage. It wasn't the most watertight storage. There's a lot of damp in there, so the bike has had kind of damp damage. Corrosion's happened, and back then I sprayed the frame with the rattle can, so of course racing it a few times, coming off the bike a few times. Well, there's a few war wounds on the back there. The silencer had it on the other side as well, and yeah, just lots of scrapes on things, so it needs just tidying up. Might even put a new exhaust on it, but let's have a proper look at the bike and what I did with it back in 2011. So just to bring you up to speed on what I actually did with the bike, let's go from the front to the back. The frame, obviously, that was completely resprayed. That was resprayed in the original red, which is 2030, I think is the RAL colour for that. Strange enough, it's the same colour that I've actually used on the Honda CX500. Drums, it's a drum system rear and front as well. I know a lot of people are complaining about drum brakes on the rear of bikes, but imagine racing one with drum at the front as well. But anyway, it worked. I hardly used the front, to be honest with you. I mostly used the back. But everything was painted. The front forks and the frame. The front forks, they were reconditioned, but they do need reconditioning again. They've leaked since then. New fork gaiters, we had new plastics all the way throughout it. The tank, that's a plastic tank, but it has got a leather cover on it. That was reconditioned back then. I mean, since then it's obviously been exposed to the elements. Painted the exhaust, we completely fixed the engine. It had been lowered in compression by putting 2 gaskets down at the bottom there. Took the piston head off, increased the compression in that by removing the extra gaskets. That was putting the compression back to what it was originally. Back up to the top, I put on a Pro Taper 7/8 bar on it, motocross bar. I did have a new Magura throttle on there. It's gone a bit stiff since then, but that was working great. New Van Hill cables for the throttle, the front brake, the clutch, and also on this little interesting thing here, because it's such a pain to start, that is a compression relief. So you have the option of actually starting the engine. You can just see there, with it going in and out, you have the option of actually starting the engine at a lower compression. Can't remember if it's half compression or not, but that just makes kicking it over a lot easier. We did have reconditioned Öhlins rear shock on that, but that since then has actually perished a little bit, so I do need to strip out the entire Öhlins here. Interesting thing on this bike, some of you may have noticed, it's a left-hand kickstart. Really doesn't make it easy when you're starting it, especially if you've got it up on its stand. Trying to get your leg up from there and trying to kick it isn't the best thing, especially if you're not good at left-hand kicks. You have to kind of get off it and start it like that. You cannot start it without motocross boots. Thing is, if you try and start it with any normal shoes, it's just going to break your ankle. The kickback on it, especially at full compression, half compression, yeah, kind of a bit easy, but full compression, that kickback on it is just going to break your ankle. So, as I said, there was a new reconditioned Öhlins monoshock put on it. The carburetors are all reconditioned, new jets and everything on that. That needs obviously cleaning out again. I can see now that the actual gasket for that has just perished, it's just disappeared. There was a new boot on here, so that little rubber boot in there, believe it or not, that was like 50-60 quid just for that boot, and it's gone again. So what these boots, you can see it's soft up there, not up there. These boots break so easily because they just perish with fuel, and I don't think it's occurred to anyone to actually make a fuel resistant one yet. I suppose they just keep on getting money out of people. So then anyway, that had a new boot on it, new air filter on the inside, new plastics completely throughout, like I said, front, side panels and rear panel. And going at the back here, we've got a new DEP silencer. Well, it was new at the time. Unfortunately, I fell on the side here and that kind of bent the silencer in a little bit, but that's only a little bit of frame damage there. Nothing much, just needs bending back out and straightening. Down here, fitted a new rental chain and a Talon sprocket as well on this. I can't remember what the tooth count was on the sprocket, but I did change it from factory standard to have more power at the low end. Obviously you're losing power at the top end then. On a motocross track you kind of need it at those initial revs basically. That's why I changed the configuration on this, but I was really happy with riding it. Back to the rough specs of this bike, of course I'm not going to mention torque figures or horsepower or anything like that, but I can tell you this, the engine is a beast. It's a 2-stroke single big bore cylinder, so that single cylinder is 490cc. It's got a beautiful sound to it. I can't start it now. Unfortunately, when I kept it, I didn't think it was going to be this long, so I didn't even bother to drain the fuel out of that. Of course, it's a 2-stroke mix. There isn't a separate oil injection system with this. It's purely a 2-stroke mix. So fuel and 2-stroke oil in the tank. It's been sitting there for ages. It's probably gummed up in the carburetors now, so all that needs to clean. You know what, it would not start with the fuel that's in it now. It needs a fresh fuel before I did any of that. But I will be doing that. Actually, first thing, I'll take the carb apart, put a new gasket on and things like that. But yes, it is an absolute beast of a bike. But it's not power that you can't handle. It's actually smooth, considering the amount of aggression that this bike puts out. It is in a manageable way, so the delivery of that power is really smooth. So if you want to do hill climbs or anything like that, or even forestry, probably isn't the best because it does kind of bite your head off at the same time, but hill climbs, this bike is it just continuously delivers that power and doesn't fail you. So I thought I'd just introduce this bike to you anyway, as we are nearing completion of the CB750, and I haven't forgotten, now that the weather's nice, I will be actually doing that final conclusion of the GS550 video as well. Now unfortunately I'm going to disappoint so many people on this build. It's not going to be a scramble, it's more than a scramble, it's a motocross bike. It's not going to be a street legal bike. It's not going to look any different from this. It'll look a lot cleaner. What I'm planning to do on it is powder coat the frame, disassemble everything, clean everything out thoroughly, get everything that needs polishing polished, get it looking back to near mint condition, with these war wounds of course, with these scrapes and everything on it. I would love to put a new whether it's a DEP or a Maico only exhaust, I'm not sure. This expansion chamber going all the way up to the top there. And the Maico only one that's been kind of welded and hand fabricated just looks beautiful going up the side there. I do need to put one of those on. I would love to put a reed valve on this. These models didn't come with a reed valve. And I know there are reed valve replacements and adapters you can get for this bike. Might look into that and see what it's like. And of course I need to recondition the front forks and that Öhlins rear shock as well, so I'll be completely dismantling that. The bike itself will be completely dismantled as well to be sent off to the powder coaters. So with that all said, that is it from me today. We'll be back on your screens next week with more videos, CB750 videos, wiring videos and that, GS550 videos now that the weather's getting nicer. If you like what you see, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, visit footballindustries.com if you'd like to see if there's any merchandise on there that you'd like to buy and support this channel. That'll be gratefully received. So until next week, ride safe, stay safe and make the most of this beautiful weather if you're in the UK. See you soon.